This website here is worth about $10,000. I've asked Gemini and Claude to create a version of it. Let's see the results. This is Frank from Obelisk. It is a Gemini versus Claude website challenge. Let's go. So who are the competitors? Gemini in one corner and Claude in the other. So I wanted to use the whole suite of the Gemini tools. First off, we've got Chat, Notebook, and AI Studio, and it's going up against Claude, Chat, Cowork, Design, and Code. The challenge, once again, is design me a 10K website. So here's my starting prompt. I've said, act as a world-class copywriter and SEO specialist, and go ahead and create a brand package and website for Meridian Attitudes Coffee. I've asked it to go ahead, create a content marketing website, feature the products, and also to go in and to create a quiz on that particular site. Okay. Now, Gemini's come back with some great focused products, right? And it's also come back with 5 articles. So we're ready to go, and even has the quiz there shown in JSON. Right? So we have that, and we're ready to go. Next up, I want to take this chat and I want to move it into a notebook so that Gemini can work with it a little bit better and create more types of files for me. Okay. Now I've put this into Google Notebook, and what I found was, and I asked it to create 2 core articles here. What I found was it was decent at creating those articles, but no more decent than in a chat window. I've used Google Notebook many times to do deep research. And in fact, I've used it to choose locations for Meridian Attitudes Coffee Company, our example company. Okay. So I've asked it to go ahead, take those 2 articles and put them into a PDF. So it's a lot easier to then take that and share it with AI Studio. Here's the prompt that I'm using for AI Studio. I'm asking it to create a hero banner page, main page, blog, content marketing section, an interactive quiz, and also I'm asking for it to have the product catalog and also to work out the e-commerce portion of this. Create a shopping cart drawer. I provided it with some additional images as well, and I want to see if by default it's going to make use of all that content. All right, so I'm going to build it out, and let's see its particular approach. Okay. I'm not modifying the prompt too much here, right? But I am asking it to go in and draw those articles and make use of them. And here we've got it. It's gone out and created all of those different sections in AI Studio and done quite an excellent job. A few misses though. It didn't use the Meridian logo that I provided, and I haven't found those images that I provided nicely on the site. AI Studio has kind of gone out and found its own images. Okay, but let's take what we've got here and make some modifications, right? As you can see, I've just gone in and said, use the logo that we've referenced. Okay, it's gone in and changed that. one of the benefits of using AI Studio is I can go in, take a look at the code. I can take a look at its responsive nature, right? And then up at the top, I've got the options there to remix and share. Okay. What I wanted to show here is that it got the types of coffee, and it's got this whole set of functionality where we can add to the cart, right? We can view it in a separate page, and then it kind of uh, creates a nice little e-commerce cart for us. And it even has kind of a prepped place where we can pay for our coffee, right? Edits are easy. Just go up and click the pencil in the top right, and you go into edit mode, and you can select individual items that are on the page, right, and make any changes. So in this case, I changed the location here from San Francisco to Chicago. I can go in and make any other edits. Like, let's say I wanted to swap those buttons. So I said, move the quiz button to the right of the Explore Roasts button. One of the other slight misses here that Gemini made was it added in a section for brand voice, kind of mistaking the content that I had provided it with. So I asked it to remove that section as well. So that's easy. If it kind of creates more sections, you can go ahead and change that. Note that we can go back and tweak any versions that we like. We can share on Google Drive and other Google products, and we can also export this to GitHub. All right, we've covered off what we've done for Gemini. Let's dive into Claude. Okay, here is my prompt for Claude. I've asked it to go in this case, take a look at some of the existing content that I have available on Meridian Attitudes Coffee. So this is leveraging co-work. I've created that prompt from the chat, and I've said, go in and build out that 10K website for me. All right. Now, one of the amazing things that Claude does in the co-work space is it really starts functioning as your mate. So I want to take a couple of minutes here and just walk through some of the things that it found. When it looked in my underlying folders, which were kind of a bit messy, it found that there were two branded versions, one that dealt with a coffee company in the UK and one that dealt with stores in Canada. So I've asked it to go in and just focus in on Canadian pricing. Okay. It caught a couple of other things as well, that we didn't provide all of the details in terms of the pricing. So it's going to kind of make up some of those values as placeholder values, and we can change those later. All right. Now, one of the other things it found as well is that some of the other numbers like temperature weren't modeled properly. So it went through and kind of pushed back on what it found and where it is guiding me. So I found that co-work really started working as a colleague. It even, asked questions about fonts. So it suggested that Impact wasn't quite the correct font. So I've asked it to choose another font for me. Now, I've asked it to go ahead, use that brief MD file, right, where it knows what I've already created, and
then go ahead and create a content marketing site from that with articles that range between 900 and 1400 words, right? So what's in this brief? One of the key things, there's a lot in there, but one of the key things is it's an understanding of how it's going to build out the site. So it's going to have index, HTML, coffee, real things related to wholesale, gifting, and subscription. All right, so we've got that core structure. We know what structure Claude is going to build. All right. Again, I've kind of jumped it ahead here. It took a little bit, but now it's created 5 articles that you can use on the site. And it's also gone ahead and created additional pages that are needed for our website, an about us page and a contact page, right? All very, very helpful in terms of creating that site and building it out, so we don't need to worry about those additional considerations, right? There's still, of course, some work to be done, but Claude Cowork gives us an excellent starting point that we can then move ahead with. So we've got now 5 articles, and we've got kind of a structure that we want to work with. Let's move into Claude Design. I'm giving it a logo, I'm giving it some images, and I've asked it to go ahead and build that out. This is more of a basic prompt. I could see that in the future, we might have a scenario where those files that we've created in Cowork can then just get imported in the design. It's not quite there yet, right? But you could see in the future, you'd be able to just kind of click and say, you've got all the content, now go create the design. All right. Look at the difference here. Claude has created the design based on all of the logo colors, and it's followed that quite faithfully, right? It's built out those various sections on the different types of coffee. There's a subscription section, right? There's the content marketing portion, right? And then it also asked it to create a template for building out those content marketing articles. All right. Now, as you create these, the one bonus of design, and I've shown this in other videos, is can allow you to tweak that content. Now that we have kind of a full design within Claude Design, how do we get those assets to move back into Claude so we can use them in code? Well, just with the share button, we can select the content files and export them to code. It's a little bit of a clunky process here. I had to go through and select all of the files that were generated. It's helpful in a way. You might not want all files that you've created within design to be exported. But in this case, I've said, take this content and now create the underlying website. Okay. The clunky part is it just kind of creates a prompt for you, references that content, and then that's what it pushes over to Claude Code. So I'm a bit of two minds here. You can, in design, export, in a zip file with all of your content, and you could provide that to Claude Code and then give it some instructions. Claude Design will have probably a smoother process to move it over to Claude Code. But let's see what it builds here. Okay, I've had to Just as a note, I've because of where those design files were located, I had to keep allowing access to that folder. And it's going out and creating that structure that it found in the brief. So it created the index, shop, contact pages, about us, and other pages. But one of the other issues that I ran into is because of where the content was located, by default, it couldn't preview the file. All right, let's move on to our site. It did do an excellent job of taking that design and putting it all together. So it gave us our core page, long scrolling page. It talks about our coffee. It does give some pricing for that coffee that we can adjust as needed. All the 5 types of coffee that we had. And again, that was all information that it learned from the folder. So there's a huge benefit there. Okay. What it also did a good job of was that whole finding the locations and putting those in, putting in some store hours so we can tweak those. And finally, it did an excellent job of taking that content marketing in those articles and building those out from behind the scenes without getting asked. Gemini didn't find a lot of the content that was created, and it didn't natively do that. It gave us some other benefits, such as e-commerce benefits, where it seems that Claude went in, was focused on content marketing, subscription, and making sure that it was aligned with the brand. But it's missing some of that default e-commerce back-end content. It's not to say that it can't do it. Just this is the starting point that we then have to prompt it further to build that other functionality in. But still, an excellent starting point.
So, what were the results in our Claude versus Gemini challenge? First off, Gemini. So, how did Chat, Notebook, and AI Studio do? Well, the chat was successful and it created decent content marketing for us. The notebook feature didn't really help us out any more than the chat did. It created some decent content marketing, but not much more than that. In terms of AI Studio delivered on functionality, but it missed some of the key pieces that I asked for in the design category. And maybe that had to do with incorporating those into the prompt. But there was still a lot more functionality, and you kind of got a lot more bang for your prompt buck with Gemini, because it gave whole store and all the functionality relating to purchasing coffee. Also doing that quiz. How did Claude do? Well, Claude, using chat and cowork design and code, delivered on a bunch of different fronts. First off, in terms of chat, it created much more informed content. That's because it read all the directories that had all the background and brand information that I provided on Meridian Attitudes Coffee. The second thing that I wanted to point out is Cowork actually pushed back on my ideas and worked more like a workmate. It had many more questions for me to answer, and it found core things when it found any conflicts, like the conflict in between an old version that had some coffee prices in pounds versus dollars. Design really delivered on the branded CSS. It felt like a unique site and a lot less generic than the Gemini site that was created. Right? And it followed the CSS. Now, the final piece, how did it deliver in terms of Claude Code? Well, even though I was able to kind of take that design and move it across, Claude Code matched the design really nicely, and it provided those articles. So it worked really well on the content marketing site. However, it didn't have any other bells and whistles, and we really were left with just kind of one core page that had sections as opposed to unique pages. So a few drawbacks there, but overall, what would I recommend as a course forward? I would suggest that content marketing, you're safe with content marketing in either Gemini or Claude Chat. They really do create decent results. On the design side, Claude, I think, is a winner. And on the construction side, AI Studio is delivering some really interesting results just out of the box. So maybe the best way forward is to manage and create and shape a design in Claude and then build it out in AI Studio. Something to keep in mind. Anyway, this is Frank from Obelisk. Hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.